أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم. Jazakallah khair for the awesome introduction. So I was asked to present on this very interesting topic, but I want to make some disclaimers before I continue. I'm not a scholar, so please don't take these words into any kind of scholarly way. It's Islamic scholar at least. Most of the stuff that I present is data from research. So research that basically what I did was, and this could be done for even a longer period of time, but I just went online to the place where we do our scholarly research in psychology, and I put in gender differences, and these are most of the recent articles or studies that were done. So this goes to show, how it is. And a lot of times what happens is that when we talk about men and women, our cultural understanding takes precedence, and if we go back to our cultures, like I'm from Pakistan, and we know, the different roles that men and women have there, and a lot of times how it's not really congruent with how the roles are in America. So, what I'm presenting is actually the Western research. It's not even like, our like Desi research, so the reason I'm making that point is because, it's not supposed to be like, I'm not trying to make a point here with something, I'm just presenting the facts or the data that's been supported by research. So I'm going to start off with an ayah or a few ayat from the Quran. In Surah Al-Layl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى وما خلق الذكر والأنثى. So when I was memorizing this surah back, I want to say maybe 20 years ago, I asked my father to go over the translation, and I was I used to look at these patterns in the Quran, and why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention these things in a different way, in a certain way? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath by the night when it covers, and then by the day when it appears, and by He who created male and female. Right? It's a very unique place to mention the male and female in the creation there. And one of the things my father mentioned to me was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to show us how men and female are different and opposite. Just like the night and the day are opposite. But they do also, support one another. There's a specific role that both night and day play. However, they are on the opposite end. Just as we see the opposition in night and day and the similarities in night and day, it's also, within the context of the creation of men and women. So, this was a very eye-opener for me at the time. Alhamdulillah, as we do research and we find out, and as we go through our experiences as husbands and wives, we see more and more how men and women tend to be different, yet complementary to one another. So this picture is actually very interesting, like how we even do colors, for example. Women are very specific about colors. And we may ask, like, what's the problem here? Like, so what if somebody has so many different classifications? But now I'm going to present you like a hypothetical scenario, right? Your wife that you've been married to for a few years says, what color was my dress the day we got married? And you said blue, and she's like, no, it was teal. And and in her mind, the problem is not that, oh, men are just the way they are like that, It's going to be, he didn't care enough to even remember the color of, the most important day of our life, when I should be the one that he should be paying most attention to. He didn't care enough. That's what happens. And unfortunately, that's what Shaitan comes in too. He comes and whispers and really feeds our weaknesses in terms of how we interact. So that's just one example, but we'll go through inshallah more. So first thing I'm going to do is actually just go through some physical and physiological examples, just to show, physically, we have physicians here sitting too, they know, and even people who study a little bit, how we are just different physically, but that's the stuff that we can see and at least recognize, but there's a lot more to it even behind that, inshallah. So obviously these are just like physical differences that men have in their body structure. For example, men are just more hairy. Our muscle tone is just bigger than women. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us. We have different sexual reproductive organs. Our body sizes are generally tend to be different. This is all supported by research, by the way. So if you want me to cite any specifics, you can email me and I will send it to you. Incidentally, women outlive men. This is like a recent research. And there's higher incidence of death from disease in men. So women have a stronger immune system. Alhamdulillah. Some anatomical and physiological difference in skeletal structure between men and women. There's less muscle hypertrophy with strength improvement in women than men. There's reduced oxygen carrying capacity in women. These are big, science terms. But just to show you, even beyond what's physically there underneath it, like the way our bodies work physiologically, there's so many differences between us. Hormonal differences, differences in bone mass, in heart size and rate. And again, there's a lot of research to back this up. So this is the physical aspect. Let's step towards the psychological aspect. Oh, actually, there's more physical aspect here. More flexibility in women than men. Women are able to withstand higher temperatures before physiological response occurs, like sweating. Like you can't tell, but I'm sweating a little bit here, just because I'm kind of nervous up here. Higher basal metabolism in men, and other issues that are specific for women. So again, just to kind of show you, and this is to get your mind to think that there are differences that exist, and it doesn't make one person superior or better or whatnot. It's just that this is the way we are created. And again, whether you look at it from an evolutionary point of view or a creationary point of view or both, if you're the one that integrates the two, you see that this is how we are. This is just what makes us us. There's no superiority or better or worse here. So the first thing I want to touch is emotional expression. But before I do that, I want to just remind you guys, there's some things that you will hear time after time throughout the day. Especially, you've heard it in Brother Human's speech and Sister Fahad's speech about their topics, and you'll hear it in mine too. When we were in classes and in classrooms and the professor repeated a certain topic over and over again, there's a reason for it, because that's what's going to be in the exam. So when we're repeating something over and over again and you keep hearing the same thing, like communication, for example, how women behave and how we listen and how we interact, men versus women, these topics are important because they're the most common issues that happen in marriage. So please pay attention to them. So emotional expression. Research, and this is from 2012, indicated that there are small but significant gender differences in emotion expressions, with larger gender differences emerging at certain ages and in certain contexts. Girls or women showed greater positive emotion expressions than boys, and girls also express more internalizing emotions. We'll talk in a minute about what that means. Than boys, particularly in negative situations when with an unfamiliar adult. So, for the first time there, girls showed greater positive emotion expression than boys. What does that mean? Women tend to be more, upfront about how they feel. Like if they feel happy, you'll see it, right? And that's just the way, they are. Men are not that like that. If we're happy, even when we're sad, you don't see it. We just have like this blank stare, and you can't tell what's going on. But a woman is more likely to express that. Women also are more likely to express internalizing emotions, so sadness and fear. You should be able to see it, more in women than in men. And this is why when a woman gets upset or sad, she's more likely to cry. But men, what do? We internalize that depression and anger. So what we get is anger comes out, as a result of this depression that's underneath, because we don't show our depression. We don't, men generally don't cry. Men or boys in contrast showed greater externalizing emotions expression, particularly anger. So this is how we show our emotion, is by being angry. Again, that's the study if anybody wants to look at the specifics. So when you look in terms of marriage, what does that mean? Right? So like I said, women are more likely to express if they're happy and satisfied. And a lot of times husband may assume that she's faking it. Like, she's so happy, oh yeah, excited that we just bought this, and he might think, well, I'm not that excited, why is she so excited? Maybe she's just doing that to, make me happy. Maybe that's just, like she's just being not honest with me. But that's not the case. That's how, mashallah, women are. Men are not that way. So the wife may think the husband is not happy, right? He's not showing his happiness. I do all this for him, and all I see is that blank stare. What does that mean, right? That's just the way we are. We don't, men just don't do that. That's just the way we were created. Internalizing negative emotions, like I said, being able to take that. If the wife feels negative emotion, you may or may not see it, but you have to pay attention to certain cues. As for men, as I said earlier, anger is a big problem, especially in our community. If we take gender roles into consideration, in the Western culture, men don't get depressed. It's even though it's so open to accepting depression and frustration, but you don't see that in the Western culture. Now go back to the Desi culture. I've only seen my father cry twice. I think one time was when his father passed away, and the other time was when I moved away for college. Those are the only two times that he actually showed some kind of emotion that I saw. Other times it's been, of course, some anger that comes out. And so that's how men do. Unfortunately, that's how we are, and that's how we function in terms of our emotions. We're not going to be, showing our emotions and crying. We might. There are obviously some, unique cases, but for the most part, we won't. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to what we have are the big 5 personality traits. So there's a personality test that's actually online, and you can actually even take it yourself. And what it does is it categorizes people into 5 different personality traits. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And these are the words that describe what those terms mean. But when they did research on men and women, what they found was that women, and again, this is a very recent research, about 2 years ago, women on average have higher levels of neuroticism, extroversion, and agreeableness, while men are more open to experience. And again, this is what the data shows. This isn't my hypothesis. And as far as conscientiousness, they found no differences. So what does that mean in terms of marital indications? Women, when we use the word neuroticism, it might sound negative, but it's not like negative. It's just that women tend to have more expression of their emotion, like I said before, so they might be more moody. And it's not because she's ungrateful. Again, husbands might think that, she's showing her emotion in this way, she's ungrateful, she's not happy with what's going on. No, that's just the way she is. Extroversion, women tend to be more outgoing, talkative, and social. So we see that in gathering. For example, how many husbands here, you don't have to raise your hand, but I know, like when we go out for shopping, we just don't want to do it. Like we're like, this is getting done, right? So some people are raising hands, good. That's because you wives can't see them, right? Right? We can't. My wife's not here, so I'll raise my hand. It's just so like emotionally overwhelming, like I don't want to be here, I just want to get it done. Give me a list and I'll get it done. I know when I go to like Costco, for example, I'm in and out in like 10 minutes. And when I go with my family, it takes a long time. And so that's just, again, that's an innate quality that women have. Extroversion, parties and get-togethers. When we're at something, we just, men, we barely talk. And if the topic is usually just very, superficial, like, the politics. But women really get into it. And this is the way they are. Agreeableness. Women tend to be more tolerant, sensitive, kind, and warm. And again, that is also why they're better at parenting. Like, they're good mothers. That's the quality that they have that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instilled. Men, on the other hand, showed more openness. So they're curious, they're open to new ideas, and that's what that research indicated. Stress trajectories and depression. So what this study in 2011 showed was that females were more susceptible to depressive symptoms when they felt them. So when they felt constant stress from finances, females were more susceptible to the symptoms of depression. When they felt increasing stress from jobs, you'll see it more in this depressive symptomology among females. When they had more fluctuating stress from family relationships, females are more likely to show it. And men, on the other hand, were not. And so, I wrote down in there, this is why men have more financial responsibilities in Islam. There's a reason because men are able to more handle that. Like when we're low on money and cash, we're alhamdulillah able to keep that. It doesn't make one better than the other. Again, let me repeat that. It's just the way we are. But if a woman makes money, she's supposed to keep it for herself. She doesn't have to even give it to her husband. But when men make money, we're supposed to spend it on their family. That's our financial obligation. And this kind of supports that notion because men, at least in this study, showed that they're more able to handle that pressure than women do. In social media usage, again, doesn't make it look like it's a bad thing, but women, this study in 2012 showed that women are more likely to spend time on Facebook than attended, lose more sleep because of Facebook. These are words taken from the study, these are not my words. Feel closer to Facebook friends than those seen in daily lives, consider that Facebook photos cause negative self-body image, consider that Facebook use may cause stress, and report addiction to Facebook than men do. Again, that kind of feeds or also supports the idea of women being more social and socially active. Let's see, body image perception. Women compared to men, and that effect size, when it says P is less than 0.001, that means there's less than 1% chance that this is happening without any kind of correlation between the two. Which means there's a high correlation here that women compared to men tend to be more dissatisfied with their body image. So this is why it's important to tell your wife that she looks beautiful. A lot of times people say, well, why do I have to tell them? Well, you have to let them know because that kind of, women are more sensitive to that. Or answering the question, does this make me look fat? If you have to lie, for the sake of Allah and repairing your relationship, do it, it's fine. You don't have to be completely honest because women are more sensitive to it. It's the idea of supporting your marriage and being happy together and not being honest and abrupt. Communication skills and body language. Women are generally better able to process words and to use language than men, provided that all other factors are constant. Women pay special attention to words, read in between lines, and can notice the body language of people along with their facial expressions in a much better way than men. Again, women are more expressive. Husbands may not be able to express their emotions or put their emotions into words. Again, we've heard this one before many times, but just to kind of keep that idea at hand, that if there's a need for emotion to be expressed in any situation or any scenario, husbands are not likely to do it. Women are more likely to do it. So be mindful of that and not to use that against the other person. Why are you being so paranoid, or why are you so emotional or moody? Versus why don't you care what's happening here? It's just the way we are. Sharing and problem solving. Men in general are more independent than women. This is, I think even Sister Sabaha talked about this, I think. When a person comes to you with a problem, what do men do? We want to solve the problem, right? Here's a solution. This is what you need to do. We don't even listen, right? If the wife comes home and talks about, a coworker, oh, we just hired this lady, and she comes in and she wastes all of her time. Oh, maybe you should go talk to the boss, or maybe you should let her know. No, just shut up and listen, right? Just be quiet and just listen. That's all you have to do. I apologize if I'm being rude here. But that's all you have to do is listen and support the person. Okay, empathize. This is how it is. But men have to come in and solve the problems. On the other hand, if your husband or the person that you're with does that, just comes in and tries to give you a solution, that's what we do. I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to just find a way to deal with that weakness there. They even prefer to solve their problems alone without talking about them, right? If there's a problem, men are not going to go home and talk to their, partners, maybe sometimes, but not all the time, about the problems that we have at work. We'll just take care of them on our own. Women, on the other hand, become distressed if they didn't share their problems with their friends, even if their friends weren't able to provide solutions. It's the aspect of sharing. Like, women just love to share their problems, and even not problems, but their feelings towards anything. Men are problem solvers in general, and women just want to be heard. So we talked about this already, how women handle stress and how men handle stress. Men will shut down and will stop talking when we get to a certain phase, but women can go up and down, and we have to be mindful of that. This is how we deal with stress. That's the take-home message. So what to do? Men, know that it will get better. Just bear through the current. She's having difficulty handling, or this is the way she's handling it, just kind of stick with it. And women, just take breaks and don't overwhelm him, because if he's not ready to talk, then he's not going to talk. You can ask him, 100 times, and he's not going to let you know how he feels. Another was issues of power. Men tend to have an issue with power, and women accept influence naturally. We kind of actually already talked about this, so I'm going to skip this one. Mental rotation, this was actually a very interesting one. They did these mental rotation tasks, and this was in 2010. Men performed better at mental rotation tasks than women in all age groups. So what we get out of this is, in general, men are able to see all aspects of an issue, including long-term effects, but women may be able to see the one side, which is actually not bad. So let me support that notion with this. In most cases, both are necessary. So for example, if you're looking at a spouse for your child, right? The men will focus on the long-term issues and the other issues, and women might just focus on the specifics right then and there. And if you're buying a car, a woman might focus on just maybe the color of the car, which is fine. The men are thinking, oh well, are we buying a Toyota or are we buying a Ford, right? And again, you need two of that to kind of make decisions, so it's not good or bad. That's what the research shows. In most cases, like I said, it's better to have both opinions, so decisions should be made with consultation between husband and wife. So it shouldn't be like a one person. The husband can't, so just because I can see the long-term effects, I'm going to make the decision. No, you have to be able to take both of those into consideration. Spousal caregiving, again, we have some time. So this is just to show the differences. This is not to this doesn't really play a big role in marriage, but this is just to show how different we are in general. So they did research and found out that females reported a significantly greater level of caregiving strain than males. So when it comes to later in life and taking care of your husband, females reported a greater strain. Female caregivers had almost twice the odds of providing support in toileting-related tasks than male caregivers. And male caregivers approximately had twice the odds of providing support in mobility-related tasks. So that's, again, how different we are, even at the end of life and when we were older. And this study was done in 2009. Academic engagement. Females show greater engagement than males in college. So we already know this. like the best note takers and the best, people who do the exams and whatnot, or the most, engaged are females. And men, we don't really care. We just want to get it done and get our grades. So take-home message, again, it's not about superiority or who is better. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Hujurat, Ya ayyuhan nasu inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha, that we created people, we created you from one male and female. And at the end of the verse, he says, so he divided us into different tribes and different nations, but at the end, it's inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The best among you, in the eyes of Allah, is the one who is more God conscious. So what does that mean, be God conscious? At the end, I wrote down moral obligation. I went to a marital seminar, and actually was for clinicians, who how to do marital therapy. And one of the things that he said was, we're not morally obligated. If your wife has issues or your husband has issues that are beyond your, what you did. So let's say that their childhood was kind of bad. So there, obviously there's differences, but differences are more complicated now because there's more things happening. There's a trauma history, or there's something else, or previous marriage that caused problems. Are we morally obligated to be mindful of those issues? Maybe not. But as husbands and wives, as people who are God conscious, we are obligated to be mindful of the differences that we have in genders. We have to be mindful. There's no excuse for that, because if we choose to accept somebody, and we say we're accepting them as a wife, and we're accepting them as our partner or our husband, it is our obligation in the eyes of Allah that we're going to be mindful of those differences that are there in gender, because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Those are the differences that existed from birth. Other issues, can be dealt with, and if you feel obligated because you want to have a happy life or a better marriage or a better family, great. But in terms of gender differences, it's our obligation. We have to be mindful. We have to educate ourselves, know what makes the other person happy, what makes them upset, and be mindful of that, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in that manner. And so it's not about a superiority issue here, who's better, who's worse. There's so many ways women are so much better. I've always given examples when people say Islam, demeans to women. The Prophet ﷺ said, the best of you are the ones who are best to his wife. In terms of our character and how we judge our character is how we are to our wives. We're supposed to respond to our mothers and even break our nafil salah, and we can't do that for our fathers. So there's a lot more, there's so much respect here for both. So it's not about superiority, but it's about understanding some of these differences. So that's